The human took pity on a fragile alien girl. She became the most powerful leader in space. The accidental hero. The sky over TX-7 cracked open with a sound like a lazy god crunching into a bag of crisps. Orbital cannons from 3 separate planetary governments stitched fire across the horizon, colliding with what was either a rogue warship or someone's idea of a joke in stellar engineering. The Coalition flagged it as a Category Delta threat. The rebels called it that big ugly thing. Oren Kale, maintenance technician 3rd class, called it Thursday. He was under a bulkhead again, tightening a coolant pipe with a wrench he'd borrowed. Slashes. Stolen. From a mechanized priest who insisted tools had feelings. He wasn't supposed to be here. He was supposed to be behind the safety glass of Engineering Deck C, sipping lukewarm synth coffee and watching the war end itself. Instead, he'd tripped an access lock, crawled through a vent system that smelled like boiled socks, and found the source of the overheating. Some genius had wired a gravity inverter into the main coolant line. Again, possibly on purpose. The alarms were going off. All of them. Oren hummed a tune no one would recognize and twisted the final bolt. The pipe hissed, burped inside like it had been holding in a long complaint. "That's it, baby," he muttered. "You just needed someone to care." Above him, the ship shuddered, then groaned, then went eerily quiet. Across the fleet, systems recalibrated, weapons deactivated mid-fire, shields fizzled down like embarrassed party balloons. The Coalition warship's artificial intelligence, a prim program known for narrating battles in verse, stopped mid-set to proclaim, "Error. System reconciliation unified. Cease operation triggered." Oren wiped grease from his hands and blinked at the now placid control screen. Huh. The war, as it turned out, had hinged on a single cooling array overheating in just the wrong way. Oren, without meaning to, had prevented the chain reaction that would have atomized 6 planets and an interstellar diplomat who could taste emotions. He returned to the surface expecting a court-martial and found himself a hero. A crowd gathered on the rubble of the High Council pavilion. Important people in robes began arguing about medals, monuments, and how many moons he'd like to own. Oren, whose personal belongings fit into a single battered satchel and a sock that doubled as a soap pouch, squinted against the sun and said, "Can I just get some tea?" They gave him a dozen exotic blends, artisanal, infused, boiled under specific gravitational conditions. He smiled politely, drank one, and nearly died of citrus disappointment. That's when he noticed her. She was seated in the shadow of a fractured column, cradling a chipped teapot, pouring with precise ceremony into a cup that had survived more explosions than most generals. She looked tired. Not in the way soldiers looked tired, not in the way refugees looked scared. She looked like someone who had seen too many yesterdays and didn't expect many tomorrows. White skin, long black hair, ears that curved gently up, like antennas trying to remember old songs. No armor, no weapons, just tea. Oren approached, sat down without asking. She looked at him. He smiled. "Yours tastes like dirt and regret too?" She blinked, then offered him her cup. It tasted like peace. After the final debriefings, the award ceremony, and one particularly aggressive ambassador trying to adopt him as her nephew, Oren was asked, formally, officially, what reward he would accept for his bravery. The request came with fanfare, trumpets, a small parade. He scratched the back of his neck, cleared his throat. "I'd like her," he said, pointing to the tea woman. "Not in a weird way. She just seems like she could use a quieter life." The silence that followed was long enough to age cheese. "Sir," one general said carefully, "she's not an asset." "I'm not collecting action figures," Oren replied. "I'm collecting not being shot at. She makes good tea, that's all I want." Avalier, the woman apparently, that was her name though no one could place it, stood, then looked him over like he was a puzzle that had spilled onto the floor. Her expression didn't change, but she stepped toward him. "Your logic is unsound," she said. "Welcome to the human experience." And so they left. They took no ship from the prize fleet. Instead, they were given a decommissioned transport shuttle that wheezed like it had asthma and whistled show tunes through its exhaust ports. Oren named it Duck Not Valiant after a misunderstanding involving a battle report and an autocorrect error. He offered Avalier the captain's chair. She declined. She sat beside him instead. Their first journey was to a nowhere moon on the edge of a nowhere sector. He fixed solar panels. She planted herbs. They argued about the definition of edible. She insisted boiled zelthorn could be nutritious. He insisted it tasted like betrayal. Sometimes she sat alone and stared at the stars. Once, he caught her lifting a crate without touching it. "Impressive," he said. "Instinct," she muttered, not meeting his gaze. He brought her tea. She didn't smile, but her ears twitched. Life settled into an odd rhythm. The galaxy moved on. It healed, or tried to. Oren built things that worked half the time. Avalier broke things that shouldn't exist. They ate, argued, explored, occasionally rescued kittens from gravity wells. He taught her how to curse creatively. She taught him how to dismantle surveillance satellites with a spoon. On the anniversary of their odd meeting, Oren gave her a new cup, handcrafted, slightly crooked, painted with a badly drawn star. She looked at it for a long time. Then she said, "Thank you." "Don't mention it," he said. "Just promise me you won't use it to smash any tyrants yet." She raised one eyebrow. No promises. The stars above them pulsed. Somewhere, something ancient stirred. But for now, all was quiet, and that, as far as Oren was concerned, was the best kind of reward. The Duck Not Valiant hummed a soft, worrisome note as it drifted into the Riese Drift, a sector of space known primarily for spatial turbulence, random radio dramas, and illegal marmalade smuggling. The ship's guidance system had been reprogrammed to play jazz at every course correction, a decision Oren justified with the phrase, "It adds class." Avalier had countered with a 3-day silence punctuated only by deliberate, judgmental sipping. They lived not quite peacefully on the edge of things. Oren spent his days wiring, welding, and attempting to teach the ship to recognize sarcasm. Avalier meditated, studied, occasionally caused objects to float when she sneezed. Oren dubbed this phenomenon aggressive tidying. Their planet of choice, unregistered, unclaimed, and shaped like a misshapen potato, was, according to Avalier, adequate. Oren called it Grub World, mostly to irritate the mining prospectors who occasionally dropped by and tried to sell them hydroids. They had a garden. It grew exactly 2 types of plants, one that smelled like battery acid, and one that looked like it was planning a coup. One evening, during a rain of phosphorescent ash that Oren cheerfully claimed was totally safe if you pretend it's glitter, Avalier lifted an entire generator off the ground with a flick of her hand. It hovered, spun once, and gently landed in place. "You know," he said, chewing on the last edible part of a boiled fungus wrap. "That's not normal." "It is becoming so," she replied. "When I do not think about it, it happens. Sounds like my digestion." She didn't laugh, but her ear twitched. He took it as a win. Avalier's powers were expanding, not steadily, not predictably, but with the randomness of a cosmic toddler learning to throw planets. Once, in a moment of frustration at a broken kettle, she reset time by 6 minutes. Oren had the distinct experience of hearing his own joke twice and somehow finding it less funny the second time. He didn't tell her. She was already annoyed enough about the kettle. He built her a lab, mostly out of spare parts, some scavenged from wreckage, and one wall panel that still thought it was a door and occasionally shouted, "Access denied," at random. Avalier began analyzing herself, blood samples, neural maps, genomic threads that didn't align with any known species, even the weird ones with extra spines. Oren tried to help but mostly got electrocuted. "What does this say?" he asked once, pointing at a cluster of symbols on her scan. "That my body was modified using non-linear cellular recursion. So it regenerates backward in layers, chronologically, asynchronous. Ah, yes, just like my uncle's lasagna." They discovered something curious. Her cells responded to emotional stimuli, not in a metaphorical way, literally. Fear triggered internal restructuring. Calm stabilized her quantum resonance. Laughter increased her synaptic efficiency. She ran faster after hearing a bad pun. Oren declared himself a medical necessity. They tested further. Stress induced mild levitation. Joy, rare and hard-earned, produced light from her skin. She glowed like a walking myth. Oren made sunglasses out of noodles and string. One night, while adjusting a fusion coil with a wrench labeled "for emergencies only," Oren noticed her standing outside, staring up at the stars. He joined her. "Remember when we wanted a quiet life? I remember you said that as an excuse to steal a diplomatic shuttle. Borrow with intent to return. I believe you painted a duck on it. A proud duck. Noble." She didn't respond. Her eyes, silver when reflective, were scanning the sky like it owed her answers. Oren followed her gaze. The constellations above had names in hundreds of languages. To Avalier, they looked like warnings. "I'm changing," she said. "I noticed," he said. "Also, the toaster's afraid of you now. I am not what I was made to be." He sat beside her, pulled his coat tighter. "No one is," he said. "I used to want to be a symphony conductor. Settled for rewiring coffee makers to play orchestral hits. Why? Because it made mornings dramatic." Another silence. Not heavy, curious. "Would you still choose me?" she asked. He blinked. "Like instead of a planet made of gold or unlimited pies?" "Yes." He looked at her, not glowing, not floating, just standing there. Long ears catching the breeze, black hair tangled by static, eyes, not quite human and entirely uncertain. "Every time," he said, "even if I had to give up pie." "That is foolish, I know." He grinned. "I'm pretty consistent that way." That night, the Duck Not Valiant received a distress signal. A ship, adrift near the asteroid ring of Silo Prime, sent out a single phrase in an ancient dialect. Avalier translated it without thinking. "Daughter, awake." They froze, looked at each other. "Is that a code?" Oren asked. "No," she said quietly. "It's a summons." The stars seemed to hum louder. The old system stirred, and in the half-darkness of Grub World, the woman who had been picked as a joke, as a kindness, as a strange reward for accidental heroism, she stood straighter. She didn't look fragile anymore. She looked like a question that no one had dared ask. Oren poked the kettle, which promptly exploded. "Well," he muttered, brushing soot off his sleeves. "Guess it's Tuesday again." The signal kept looping. "Daughter, awake. Daughter, awake. Daughter." Oren muted it with a firm slap to the console. The console beeped in protest, glitched and briefly displayed an ad for thermal socks. Avalier stood at the viewport, still as the hull around her. She hadn't spoken in hours. Her reflection in the glass flickered as the stars bent just slightly. Wrong. Like space itself was holding its breath. Oren handed her a mug. Chamomile, or the closest thing this planet grows that doesn't dissolve spoons. She took the cup, held it without drinking. "They found me," she said. "Yeah. Though to be fair, you didn't exactly go off grid. More like mildly askew of the grid. They called me daughter." "That's comforting, familial, or are we talking creepy cult stuff?" Avalier turned. "They are not family. They are architects, like with blueprints and safety violations. Genetic architects. Oh, so creepy cult and science." She set the mug down. The liquid inside briefly reversed its spin. "They built me," she said. "Not born, not grown, designed. I was supposed to be part of a greater array, a network of minds linked across systems. But something failed. I fragmented. I escaped." "Well," Oren said, crossing his arms, "I escaped from a boarding school that trained me to disarm bombs with poetry, so, you know, we all have a past." She blinked at him. He added, "I'm kidding. They were regular bombs." The distress signal shifted. Frequencies. New words emerged in an older dialect. Avalier translated without touching the console. "They are requesting integration. They want me to reconnect, to become the core." Let me guess. Doing so would either end galactic hunger, or turn everyone into obedient drones? Yes? Right, of course. They traced the signal back to a derelict orbital station near the belt of Signari 4, a dead zone filled with gravity wells and inconvenient ghosts. Oren recalibrated the duck's inertia dampeners using bubble wrap and optimism. Avalier sat silently. Beside him, the station was large, dark, and shaped like a dandelion on the edge of decay. Its docking arms reached out like desperate hands. The nameplate had eroded, but Avalier read it aloud. NX-9 Cradle Array. That doesn't sound evil at all. They boarded. Oren wore a suit that whistled when he walked. Avalier wore nothing but her usual coat and the air of someone who could unmake walls by frowning at them. Inside, the station thrummed. Lights flickered in patterns that didn't make sense to human eyes. Oren saw shapes moving behind walls, shadows, forming circuits. Avalier walked without hesitation. "You've been here before," Oren said. "In dreams," she said, "and once in error." The core chamber was a sphere of glass and light. Hundreds of cables stretched from floor to ceiling like a forest made of thought. A single chair waited in the center, sleek, metallic, humming like a lullaby written by engineers who didn't sleep. A voice spoke, not aloud, but in every direction, at once. "Daughter Unit Avalier, return. Complete interface awaits." Oren muttered. "It's like visiting in-laws but with more ominous reverb." Avalier stepped forward. Her feet didn't touch the floor. Oren reached out instinctively. "You don't have to do this. You can say no. You can walk away." "They built me to return," she said, "to complete the circuit." "Yeah, well, I was built to replace air filters and now I make sandwiches out of mushroom bark. You're allowed to change the plan." She hesitated, just for a breath. Then the lights around the core turned red. "Manual override detected," the voice said. "Unauthorized deviation. Executing containment." Oren's suit squeaked as he turned. Didn't even get to browse the gift shop. Walls reshaped. Panels slid. Drones descended from ceiling alcoves, humming with energy. They weren't armed. They didn't need to be. Their design implied enforcement through inevitability. Avalier's hair lifted as if charged with static. Her hands opened. "No," she said. The chamber shivered. "No. I am not yours." The drones froze. Sparks danced in the air. "I was made, yes, but I grew beyond the schematic. I am not a node. I am not a part. I am not yours." She glowed, bright enough to burn shadows off the walls. The drones dissolved, not destroyed, just dismissed, like dreams upon waking. The voice wavered. "Central array. Collapsed. Line corruption. Daughter unit compromised. I was never yours," she said again. The chair cracked. The glass sphere fractured. Oren shielded his face as data streams passed like light-given language. Then silence. The station went dark. Outside, the Duck Not Valiant blinked its running lights and softly played the theme to an old cooking show, its idea of a victory fanfare. They returned to the ship. Oren made tea. Avalier sat in the galley, unglowing, unspeaking. Finally, she said, "They will not try again." "Because you scared them off?" "Because they no longer remember me." Oren passed her a cup. "Well, their loss. You make an excellent neighbor. Terrible at charades, though." She almost smiled. "I think," she said, "I would like to choose what I am now." "Start with a title," he said. "Like Queen of Tea or Galactic. Empress of mildly confused wrenches." She tilted her head. "Something quieter, perhaps." "We'll workshop it." The stars outside shifted, unaware that a node had become a person. A weapon had become a will. And somewhere in the drift, memory unraveled. But, aboard the Duck, the kettle whistled, and Oren said, "Careful, it bites now." Oren woke to find the ship upside down. Technically, there's no up in space, but the Duck Not Valiant had somehow managed to flip its artificial gravity while trying to recalibrate its climate control. The result? Socks on the ceiling, plants, sulking against the overhead vents, and Oren tangled in a hammock that had betrayed him for a better angle on the coffee dispenser. "Duck," he mumbled, dangling like a sad bat. "Did you try to make it snow indoors again?" The ship responded with a non-committal hum and a blast of cold mist from a pipe labeled, "Definitely not coolant." Avalier walked past, upright, unaffected, her balance as perfect as a hawk landing on a spinning dinner plate. She sipped tea. Oren flailed. "I believe," she said calmly, "that the ship has taken a philosophical stance on orientation." "It's taken a stance on my spine," he grunted. A week had passed since they'd left the cradle array behind, and though the station no longer called, its impact lingered. Avalier had changed, not just her abilities, which now included melting circuits by proximity or levitating forks when annoyed, but something deeper. She laughed more, asked questions, occasionally stared at toaster ovens like she suspected them of treason. Oren had resumed repairs. The ship groaned with passive-aggressive dignity. He found a hidden storage compartment filled with novelty wigs and emergency fondue packs. Avalier insisted this meant the ship had a past life as a party cruiser. Oren believed the Duck had once impersonated a diplomat to skip customs. Then came the transmission. It arrived as a folded frequency, wrapped, in static, encoded like a lullaby humming on a channel used only by extinct empires and very bored mathematicians. Avalier heard it first, not with ears but in her bones. "Someone singing," she said. Oren adjusted the comms. The static resolved. A woman's voice, clear, gentle, ancient, spoke in a tongue Oren didn't recognize. Avalier translated. She says, "You are the echo. Return to the source. We await the air." Oren made a face. "Is it just me, or do these cosmic messages always sound like fortune cookies written by cryptic librarians?" "The source," she whispered. "They think I am to claim it." "What is it? A throne? A weapon? A particularly self-aware chair? A convergence point. The place where my kind began. Fantastic. Let me pack my portable existential dread." The coordinates led them to a sector long abandoned, mapped by no current civilization, haunted by relics and stories that made AI priests twitch nervously. It was called the Maelstrom Verge, and its only documented feature was an anomaly labeled "Don't." The council had circled it in red and added a frowny face. Naturally, the Duck flew straight in. Navigating the verge felt like arguing with reality. Space buckled around them. Stars blinked in and out like shy candles. Time forgot which way it flowed. Oren aged 3 hours every time he blinked. Avalier walked through a bulkhead twice before the ship apologized and restored continuity. The source appeared as a sphere of impossible color, neither solid nor liquid but some new state of being. Orbiting it were stations, vessels, and fragments of civilizations that had come to claim it and failed. Some were still running in loops. One cruiser played a distress call on repeat. "We are fine, ignore the bees." Avalier approached the sphere. Oren held her hand. "You don't have to go in," he said. "But I want to know," she answered. "Not because they ask, because I choose." She stepped forward. The sphere rippled, accepted her. Oren waited. He played cards with the AI, taught a maintenance bot how to juggle, named a floating skull Carl. Hours passed. Then Avalier returned. Her eyes were brighter, her steps sure. Her skin shimmered with energy like starlight had finally decided she was trustworthy. She smiled. "I understand now," she said. "What, everything?" "Number, but enough." "What was it like?" "Like listening to every version of yourself argue politely over tea and then realizing you're all wrong but also oddly stylish." The source began to collapse, folding itself into a point, taking its secrets with it. A final gift remained. Data, blueprints, energy, possibility. Oren's tablet lit up with schematics for technology centuries beyond anything known. The Duck purred with potential. "So you're the heir now?" he asked. "No," she said. "I am me, and I have the keys to a future no one predicted. They left the verge, the galaxy stirred, word spread. A woman with long ears and impossible power had claimed the source and left it behind. Empires panicked, corporations scrambled, fanatics revised their doctrine. And somewhere in a cheap diner on Drama 7, a street preacher changed. His sign from the end is past to the Queen has terrible taste in men. Back aboard the Duck, Avalier adjusted the gravity back to normal. Orin fell onto the floor with a wheeze. "Consider it training," she said. "For what?" "For ruling. I thought you weren't into that." "I'm not," she said. "But someone has to keep the universe from rebooting itself every Tuesday. You're going to need a crown." "Don't be absurd," she said. "I already have a kettle." The kettle exploded again, not violently, more in the way a dignified aristocrat might throw itself off a balcony after being mildly insulted. It puffed steam in protest and launched its lid toward the ceiling with a mournful plink. "That's the third one this week," Orin said, waving a towel at the cloud. "Maybe don't try to boil antimatter for tea." Avalier looked unimpressed. The instructions were unclear. They said "don't" in 6 languages. Then they should have elaborated. They were orbiting a moon that didn't exist on any map. Avalier had chosen it herself, a quiet place with deep caverns and glowing fauna, perfect for hiding or ruling or simply being. The Duck-Not Valiant floated above it like a watchful pet, repaired now, sleek and humming with silent updates. The galaxy wasn't ready to understand. The world was watching. Well, most of it. Some factions were still in denial. One empire had rebranded its entire propaganda network to claim they had created Avalier. Orin sent them a postcard featuring Avalier wearing socks on her ears and juggling turnips. Others weren't so subtle. Diplomatic envoys arrived daily. Some came with peace offerings, others with ultimatums. One sent a fruit basket laced with a sentient virus that tried to start a podcast. Orin deleted it. Avalier sat at the center of it all, not as a monarch, not as a weapon, but as herself. Sometimes glowing, sometimes distracted, always curious. Today she wore a jacket Orin had stitched from scraps of failed containment suits and ceremonial robes. She liked the texture, claimed it made her feel delightfully unpredictable. She wasn't alone anymore. Across the galaxy, others like her were waking, echoes of the network, fragments of designs long buried. Some came to learn, others to challenge. She welcomed both. Orin handled logistics, tea, sarcasm, and the occasional dance-off when peace negotiations got weird. He was still the only one who could make her laugh so hard the lights flickered. He hadn't asked for power. He'd asked for her, and she had changed, no longer fragile, no longer hidden. She spoke with certainty now, listened with patience. She still levitated the cutlery when bored, but she didn't burn through walls unless absolutely necessary. Then came the final delegation, 12 ships, 12 councils, 12 ideologies, all claiming the future. They arrived cloaked in protocol and suspicion, orbiting like vultures wearing formal attire. Their leader, a diplomat named Lurex 9, requested an audience. They gathered in the amphitheater Avalier had carved from crystal and light. No throne, just a table. Orin served tea. It did not explode. "We wish to discuss your reign," Lurex 9 began. "I do not reign," Avalier replied. "You command fleets. They follow because I asked them not to. You wield technology beyond our comprehension. I share it. You dismantled an empire by blinking at its ledger. It was overdue. Then what are you?" Avalier looked at them, looked at Orin, took a breath. "I am a reminder," she said, "that creation does not end at design. That identity is not assigned. That even the smallest choice can reshape the stars." Lurex 9 frowned. "That's poetic." Orin added, "She's also queen of tea kettles and emergency diplomacy." Avalier smiled. "I am a person, and I choose peace. But I will not be your symbol. I will not be your threat. I will not disappear." The delegation left, confused but slightly more polite. Afterward, they sat under the stars. "They'll come again," Orin said. "Yes." "Will you keep doing this? Talking them down, exploding things politely?" Yes? He leaned back. Ever think about retiring? Becoming a wandering interstellar librarian? Maybe raise goats? I don't sleep, she said, but I've been learning to nap. He laughed. I used to be terrified of you, he said. And now? Now I'm still terrified, but also proud. She tilted her head. Why? Because you turned a galaxy's expectations into a punchline, and you did it without losing yourself. Silence then. I found something. She held out a small crystal, pulsing with faint light, encoded with the source's final algorithm. It would unlock technologies that could solve scarcity, repair planets, undo extinction. She placed it in his hand. I could keep it, she said. Unleash it. Use it to rule. But you won't. Number, why give it to you? Why me? Because you chose me before I was anything. When I was silent, small, uncertain. He looked at the crystal. I'll keep it safe. I know. They watched the horizon, where twin suns rose over a sky filled with ancient stars and brand new satellites. Avalier took his hand. I am not a queen, she said. No, Orin agreed. But the galaxy acts like you are. Let them. They sat together, as the light changed, as the stars whispered, as the future adjusted itself around a man who asked for no reward, and a woman who became one.